And now, the best 60-ish seconds of your week.
And on another Saturday morning in a sweltering summer, record temperatures all over the place, the heat is on the Biden family, and Hunter Biden in particular, but his father in addition. As this week we heard in congressional testimony before Jim Comer's committee, two whistleblowers tell us again that Hunter Biden had raked in as much as $17 million from foreign interests in a variety of corrupt schemes. Now, that's pretty good work if you can get it, 17 million bucks over the course of a couple of years, and that doesn't add up the money he made from selling his artwork, which he was very famous for. I mean, it just continues to get more and more troubling, and yet we don't hear much about this from the mainstream media. They're much more fixated on yet another indictment that may be coming Donald Trump's way, and they talk about that as though it had already happened. But what has already happened, they seem to look the other way or turn a blind eye to, and that's what's going on with Hunter Biden and his father. Because on the other side of Capitol Hill this week, Chuck Grassley from Iowa released documentation, credible evidence from credible witnesses that suggested again that Joe Biden and his son Hunter had shaken down Burisma. Now you understand Burisma was a company on whose board Hunter Biden served with no experience in the industry whatsoever, but that Joe Biden had threatened to withhold $1 billion, that's with a B, dollars in aid if they didn't get rid of a prosecutor who was looking into the business dealings of Burisma. This is the legacy of the Biden administration and its antecedents with Hunter and Joe's brother leading up to this. It is corruption at the highest levels, and we just have to hope and pray that we'll get to maybe not even the bottom of it, but at least halfway down, because then prosecutions will have to come. And there was another interesting show this week on the other side of the Capitol building in front of Jim Jordan's committee where Robert F. Kennedy Jr., think about that, the scion of one of the most famous, iconic families of the Democrats' history, testifying there and being pummeled by Democrats. Now look, there's a lot to disagree with Robert F. Kennedy on, and he is at his core a liberal Democrat. But earlier this week in the breakfast briefing that I hope all of you get, we quoted Robert F. Kennedy, and I'm going to paraphrase him now because I can't remember it word for word, but he basically said climate change is being used to make us all afraid and to guide us through fear, and that free markets and free solutions by free people is a much better way of combating pollution. That's from a guy who made his name as an environmentalist. So Robert Kennedy is not your garden variety liberal. And we certainly saw that in front of the congressional hearing where these Democrats were just apoplectic about him appearing at all. There have been 3 times in recent history when Democrat presidents, incumbents, were challenged for renomination. Once in 1968, when a man by the name of Robert F. Kennedy, RFK Jr.'s father, challenged Lyndon Johnson. And we know that Lyndon Johnson ultimately dropped out of the race. Tragically, Robert Kennedy was assassinated before that nomination process could play out. But in 1980, Jimmy Carter, terrible president, challenged by Teddy Kennedy, Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s uncle, darn near took the nomination away from him, but left him in such a vulnerable position that Ronald Reagan blew him out in the general election. And now you have Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who's not an office holder, not a billionaire, et cetera, challenging Joe Biden, and already he's registering at around 20% in the polls. Think about that. That's without anything really to speak of other than a few podcasts and some marginal media appearances. So the Democrats are clearly worried about Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and he is an interesting candidate. We'll just leave it at that for now. And what was particularly interesting about the Robert F. Kennedy Jr. appearance was that it was a hearing on censorship. And the Democrats tried to censure Robert F. Kennedy Jr. at a hearing about censorship, which they say doesn't exist. It's just fascinating to watch. And so is the American pastime, baseball, where the American League East is now led by the Baltimore Orioles, who have a very low payroll and yet have skyrocketed to the lead of that division. And where the New York Yankees, with a gigantic payroll, find themselves mired in last place. You don't very often hear about the last place Yankees. In fairness to them, they're still above 500 and ahead of the division leaders in the Central Division. So there needs to be a little realignment in baseball. Why the Philadelphia Phillies and the Pittsburgh Pirates aren't in the same division is beyond me. It certainly isn't based on geography, and unfortunately Major League Baseball has broken up some of the great rivalries because of the alignment that they have. Time for a realignment. With all these goofy rule changes they have in place, they certainly could take care of that. And the NFL is getting ready to report for summer camp, fall training, whatever you want to call it, and the preseason. So the other great American pastime will soon be underway. And finally, the NBA is back in the news. And as you know, I've really given up on the NBA because of all the political infusion into that league and how little basketball they actually play. I remember Bobby Knight once being asked not that long ago, "Are you watching the NBA playoffs?" He said, "Nah, not really." And they said, "Why not?" He said, "I like basketball." But that's kind of beside the point. What is to the point is the dalliance with the Chinese communists and the Chinese communist government, where the NBA has huge investments, billions of dollars, $5 billion at least in China, where they've got a $1.5 billion television deal, and where it is estimated that more than $10 billion has been invested there by NBA owners. And Adam Silver simply tries, oh, well, everybody does business with China. But the NBA is particularly egregious in propping up, supporting, and helping to develop a nation which is not only totally disregarded human rights, is a brutal regime, a corrupt regime, and most important, is an enemy of the United States of America. Shame on the NBA. Don't watch them anymore. You got lots of other great things to do, particularly at this time of the year, the best time of the year. And for now, that is the best 60-ish seconds of your week.